Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the CineFiles Extended Cut, the show where we break down the biggest stories of the week as covered by WatchMojo's The CineFiles, as well as some other stories that didn't quite make the cut. I'm your host, Matt. We have Justin, Phoebe, and Liam all here as usual. Guys, how's it going?
Hello, hello. Good.
Not bad.
Excellent.
Fine.
Excellent. We ready to start talking about what we've been watching lately?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. Let's start with Phoebe because she started this really awkwardly with that little mouse peep.
You did it to yourself.
That's just how we talk. So I watched Ocean's 11
Oh,
last
throwback.
night in preparation for Ocean's 8, which is coming out soon, which I'm very, very excited for.
Yes.
It was good. I had never seen it before. It was my first time. I'm coming very late to this film.
Really?
Yeah. It was good. It was a good...
You're just gonna... It was good.
It was a good heist movie. Yeah, I
Who's
like...
your favorite character?
Topher Grace.
Wow.
First 5
We
minutes.
talk about Topher Grace
No, I'm
more on this
joking.
podcast than anybody has.
Yeah.
It's like,
Doesn't he play Topher Grace too?
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
this scene at the beginning where I was really confused because I think that I didn't really tune into the fact that they were all playing themselves, but there was like all of these like early 2000s, late 1990s stars sitting around a table, and I was like, hey, it's Piper from Charmed. Hey, it's Shane from A Walk to Remember. And I was like, what is this movie? And then my boyfriend was like, they're all playing themselves. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it was cool. I like that they were all playing themselves at the beginning. But then when you actually get into the movie, it's good. Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's a fun ride.
It's a
fun,
really fun movie, yeah.
It hooks you for sure.
We were talking about it backstage a little bit earlier, and everyone was making fun of Don Cheadle's British accent.
Dude, probably one of the worst British accents in a movie. It's so weird that British people can do American accents all day. This segues really nicely into the movie I watched. If you don't mind me hijacking the
Go
mic.
for
I
it,
think
sure.
you mind.
Not the smoothest, but
I'm taking it over. I saw a Social Network, and like Andrew Garfield he's British. He does an American accent. So many British actors can just like do American accents, no problem. It's hardly noticeable. But like American actors should just stop. They should just stop.
I think the reason for that is that the American accent is so like, you know what I mean? And
No.
and the
because
British,
the
British,
podcast
other accents
listeners.
Yeah, for
have
the
more
audio
nuances.
listeners.
Do you know what I mean? They have like other accents have more like these tone things, and like American accents
flat,
are,
kind
it's
of.
like sort of like it's just flat.
But I
It could
wonder
also
if
be
we think-
exposure too. Like
Yeah,
Probably,
exactly.
you're
that's
more exposed to
true.
American accents as a British
Yeah,
person.
that's what I was going to say. Do we only think that because we're so used to hearing it
Yeah,
that way?
maybe.
I think Andrew Garfield has the best performance in that movie. Is that a hot take?
So let's just
It's,
clarify.
lukewarm.
Now we've switched to Justin's What You Watching, which
Yeah.
is The Social Network.
The Social Network, which is really a weird movie watching it today just because of all the stuff that's happened recently with Facebook and Russia and elections and stuff like that. Not to get too deep into the politics of it all, but there was one arc in the movie that was really weird to me is the fact that Mark Zuckerberg throughout the movie is like, no, Facebook can't have ads, which is like the only thing that Facebook is known for today, which at the time that they were making the movie wasn't the case. So it's just interesting how time has changed like the perspective on that movie.
As soon as you said that, I just thought of Senator.
we run ads.
We run ads.
Just
Wait,
gonna
what is
say
that?
when they're doing the trial or
Yeah.
whatever.
The best is
so
him,
funny.
Mark Zuckerberg, talking about barbecue.
Oh man, there's just so many great Zuck moments to choose from. There's a really funny touch in the movie where at the beginning he's like blogging and he writes the word Facebook and it like gets the squiggly line under it to say like that's not a word.
Yeah.
That's like a very like David Finchery like but
Visual
it will
moment,
be.
yeah.
But
you
it
know,
will
yeah.
be, yeah.
It's a good movie and I highly recommend rewatching it just because
I would
has
say
a new context.
It's a great movie.
I have a
Yeah.
little bit of a spicy take right now.
Please.
Oh, don't do it.
I can't stand Jesse Eisenberg. I can't stand him. I don't know why.
Why?
I feel like he's.
Don't
had
tell
a-
me it's because of Batman
he's-
v Superman.
No, that's a whole other thing. No, I don't know. I just feel like he's so similar in all of his roles. He always kind of plays like it's like a Michael Cera thing, but he's less charming. Do you know what I mean? Like he's like Michael Cera always sort of plays like this awkward kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's
And
fair.
He's charming, and then there's Jesse Eisenberg, who had like a few good movies. He definitely isn't. He's not a bad actor. I find he's very one note.
He is kind of one note.
Oh, interesting.
I agree with that, but he plays that note really well. Like he's really good at being that kind of neurotic, like very like socially awkward.
I was
In this movie, he's a robot, like completely.
Yeah.
But then you
But
watch
but it
videos
makes
of
sense
he's like
because-
really good in it.
you see videos of Zuckerberg, and you're like, wow,
Exactly.
he nailed it.
He nailed it. Yeah.
That
I mean,
video that you showed me of him being Lex Luthor. It was like a compilation video of all the times that he went like.
Oh, that's a brutal performance.
That was really weird. Really weird.
He made a choice, and you got to respect it, but it was the wrong choice. I was excited
when he was cast as I was like, he could do something really interesting with it because I don't know. I like so many movies that he's in.
Interesting for the wrong reasons, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think they went the right way with it. Sorry. I want to, because I've watched the trailer for The Social Network so many times recently because I think that's like the greatest trailer ever made.
Oh, interesting. I need to check that out.
You haven't seen it?
You haven't seen
the one with the like the operatic version of
You
Creep?
Can't. Yeah.
No,
I remember that trailer. Yeah, but I haven't.
Amazing.
Seen it.
I remember like seeing that in theaters and being like, "This looks amazing."
Phoebe, have you seen the trailer?
I have seen the trailer.
You have. I remember the first time. I just wondering if, because I wouldn't bring it up if only Liam and I have seen it. But the first time I saw that was like in the theaters, and I remember thinking like, oh my god, they're making a Facebook movie. It's kind of weird, but this trailer's awesome. But everyone in the theater was like snickering and laughing, like, oh, a Facebook movie is so lame, and then became one of the best movies ever.
One of the masterpieces
Sorkin,
of the 2010s.
And I almost dropped one. Sorkin, his script is like he can't. The thing that people say about Sorkin is that his female characters are often very dry and like always really like not well written, and this movie has that problem. Like a lot of the female characters.
Oh yeah,
in this
Rashida
movie
Jones does nothing.
Is it a problem, or do they really need like? Those characters, do they necessarily need a ton of depth?
I don't think they need depth. I just think every female character in that movie, like there's literally a character who sets fire in characters. Like,
oh yeah,
like they're
What's
all
her
just
name? London Tipton.
Yeah, man. It's,
her, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
The crazy
yeah,
girlfriend.
Yeah, there's just a lot of
point.
like, there's just a lot of stuff like that where it's just like, oh man.
Yeah.
Can we not?
I forgot about her character. Yeah. Yeah.
Great film.
That Social
Great
Network.
soundtrack also.
There you go.
Yes. Liam, what have you been watching?
So I've been watching the same movie for the past 2 years.
Don't say Spy Kids.
No.
Don't do it.
Justin knows my weird thing with this movie. So I have this thing where when I go to bed, I'll put on like a really dreamy movie to fall asleep. And so yeah,
I know exactly. What
and so I don't know if any of you guys have seen Upstream Color, the Shane Carruth.
No, but it's been on my watch list forever.
Was it Primer?
Yeah.
That he made.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's like such a weird movie, and it's this moody, like dreamy. I've seen this movie probably upwards of 100 times at this point because I put it on like so many times before bed.
Upstream of 100 times.
Yeah. And I still don't know what it's about. There's like all this weird stuff with like people being injected with like these weird larva things, and like there's these pigs, and like there's people with connection to pigs, and it's weird. Check it out. Amazing. because like this
good question, Phoebe.
You've seen it, right?
I've seen it. It is a nonsense movie. It makes no sense.
But it's like.
And
I'll
not in a
sit there
good
with
way.
my eyes closed, and like the sound design in that movie is beautiful.
Well, because Shane Carruth is
and
a brilliant
it's like such
sound
a dreamy,
designer, yeah.
like ambient movie that. Not ambient.
He's one of the few.
Oh,
that's why you fell asleep.
Nice. He's one of the few people that like does everything on his movie. Like he writes it, directs it, edits it.
That guy's
does
like
the
my
sound.
hero.
And like Primer is one of my favorite movies ever. I love that movie so much. But like this movie, I was so disappointed when I saw it. Like the follow up to Primer.
See,
and
I still haven't seen Primer because like I know it's not that type of movie. Like he goes a complete 180, and I like this tone and this like. It's just like you're in a haze for like the entire like hour and a half.
It's a nonsense movie with pigs
but it's
in it.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyways, what were you watching?
What have I been watching? I watched. It was funny. My coworker / friend Sarah. She's a friend of the show. Sarah, what's up?
Shout out.
If you're listening. She was working on a project. I guess it was like a horror movie project, and she was working on one of the entries with The Conjuring in it. And she hadn't seen it, and she doesn't like scary movies apparently. So I was like, "Oh, I'll help you find like the scariest bits." So I'm like showing her the part where like what's the demon's name? Bathsheba or whatever. Anyways, the scene where she's like at the top of the wardrobe and like jumps on the little girl. The scene when the demon like floats up the window and then's like floating above the mom's body. Anyways, I was just like, oh, revisiting these scenes. I'm gonna watch The Conjuring again.
It's creepy.
It's really creepy. I really love that movie. Hot take, I know it's a super modern horror movie, but I think it's my favorite horror movie ever.
Kind of weird that it launched a franchise. Like there's 6 Conjuring movies, like spin-offs and stuff like that. There's like 2 Annabelle. No, out.
Well, there's 2 now. There's 2 Annabelles. 2 Annabelles, 1 Conjuring sequel.
It's a Conjuring universe.
Yeah.
I was actually reading about this the other day because I was doing a supercut for Know Your Mojo, which is on every Thursday, and you can win merch, so check it out. And I was actually doing research about because I don't like scary movies, but I like to like, you know, like just tease myself with that information, you know? So I was like, what is this about? And I was like on the wiki page and I went to like this like, you know, it's actually based on a real couple that did like paranormal.
Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, these people are like brave. Like this shit is scary. Like I could not. They were like, oh yeah, we found like this doll that was haunted, and I was like, why? Why did you keep it? Like it's just.
Someone's got to do that work.
Brave.
Though.
I don't know if like maybe it's just the cynic in me. Maybe they're just really smart to be like,
but
hey guys, you want to buy our story? We found all this haunted stuff. It's just like no, we didn't.
It's interesting you bring that up because it's like it 100% could be a hoax. We don't know.
But it makes
like,
for good.
Well, yeah, I feel like
I'll be on the record in saying I don't believe in ghosts, so it is a hoax. But
it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to like watching that movie. I remember the first time I saw it, and I was like, after the movie, I was like looking up just facts about it or whatever, and I found out that it was like these real people. Yeah, and I was like, this didn't happen. Like, I feel like they really go fast and loose with it, you know?
Oh, for sure. They take some liberties, I assume. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, is it a hot take to say that it's like my favorite horror movie? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it is. It's a very good one.
I know it's a modern one. That's
it's
why.
It's a great modern horror movie.
There's like
pick another
obviously
one. Not allowed.
Try again. Come back next week with a new pick.
It would be Insidious. No, I'm joking.
Wow, just like
just keep going.
No, go back to
horror movie started in 2008, right? That was when they started.
No, if we're going for like a more classic one, I love The Omen.
Nice.
Exorcist is great.
Pick.
Yeah.
Cool. Blair Witch Project. Anyone?
Blair Witch. That still counts as modern in my opinion.
No, interesting.
1999, right?
What's that movie
Modern-ish.
where they take like a wrong turn and then they
Wrong turn?
Wrong turn.
You set that up. You wanted to make that
I've seen that
joke.
one.
Is that your favorite?
That's
that's like one of the only ones I've ever seen. So.
That's the inbreds in the forest, correct?
I think the politically correct term.
Is there one?
Matthew?
What is the politically?
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's a nice way of putting that. Anyways, so that was what you watching. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a little fun ride.
Like Ocean's 11, a fun ride.
Yeah.
This podcast is a lot like Ocean's 11. I've noticed. Yeah.
I'm Danny Ocean.
So that's a good way to end the What You Watching segment, I guess. Well, let's just end it there. But next, we're going to talk about the three biggest news stories, the three biggest movie news stories of the week.
Can't wait.
All right, we're back. So we're going to talk about the three biggest stories of the week. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but Phoebe, I'm sorry. It's another superhero story.
Yes.
Although this one's kind of different because A, it's horror, and B, it's being produced by Blumhouse. You love Blumhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So hopefully
She's
this
just saying before she's seen like 5 horror movies.
I respect them.
She respects them. There we go. So let's dive into the story, shall we? Jamie Foxx is going to star as Spawn in a new Blumhouse horror superhero movie. I guess superhero. He's kind of anti-villain, but it falls under that category.
For sure.
Justin is the resident comic book aficionado.
I am.
So what do you think of the news? Let's start with you.
I think this is a great casting. It's been rumored for a long while. I think Jamie Foxx is like a really fun actor.
Yep.
We saw him recently in Baby Driver. I thought his performance was awesome in that.
Yeah.
Very villainous in that one. Yeah.
This is a very different role. Obviously, it's a lot darker. It comes from an era in comics where everything was like brooding and dark and edgy. And the movie probably will be that in a lot of ways. What's exciting about the movie is that the creator, Todd McFarlane, who wrote and drew for Spawn and created the character, will be directing the movie.
Yes.
Cool.
Does he have any directing?
No, it's going to be his directorial debut.
No?
Did he direct the HBO animated special?
His name was attached. I don't think he had anything to do with the actual production, but he's someone who's very hands-on with the creation. So the story behind Spawn, very quickly, Todd McFarlane and a lot of other creators at Marvel were like, we're not being paid enough, we're being disrespected. They branched off and started their own company called Image, where everyone would own their own like characters and creations. So like if you go to Image and you pitch an idea, they take a cut off of the book sales, but
that's awesome.
They don't, and they still run today. They're the third biggest comic book publisher out there behind Marvel and DC, and still to this day, if you go there and you pitch an idea, they take a cut from the book sales. But if you want to go and sell the movie idea, you can. So all the guys who founded Image all founded their own books when they started, and his first book was Spawn, and it became this massive hit because basically what they did was they purged Marvel of all their biggest talent. Some of the biggest writers in the industry and artists in the industry left and create an image
because it's so appealing to them because they're just like, I can get all the
and I can sell it on the back end. So Todd McFarlane basically built an empire out of this.
Was he working with Marvel before?
Yeah, he was one of the best Spider-Man artists of the 90s. He was
That's incredible.
Yeah, he was a really, really major figure, and he was a really smart businessman, which is cool because when he came over, he was like, what can I do to kind of differentiate? And another thing that he launched was McFarlane Toys, which like kind of launched the whole statue industry, like high quality toys and stuff like that. So this guy's just like been around forever, and it makes sense that directing would be the next step for him. Canadian guy too.
Really?
Canadian.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
So
we're Canadian
Spawn
as well.
is, I assume, spawn of Satan.
Yeah,
interesting
Or
backstory.
spawn of some sort of
guess.
demon.
Good guess.
So
You
dark.
looked into the backstory.
I
a
did
little
look
bit.
into the backstory. So he was he's a CIA operative who was recruited by Jason Wynn. Is that correct? The CIA's manager.
I believe you are correct.
Yes. Anyway, so he was recruited to join this secret CIA operative because he had saved the president's life from an assassination attempt. But then he started butting heads with this CIA director, and the director was like, ugh, don't like this guy. I'm ordering a hit on him. So he has him killed, which then sends him to hell, and then he makes a deal with a demon called, what's his name?
Oh, great
Satan.
question.
It's
It's one of those bizarre demonic
Malabolgia?
Malgoria or something.
Yeah.
Malboria.
Let's just call him Matt.
Malabolgia.
Malabolgia.
Thank you, Manny.
Manny, our
Manny.
director,
Shout
just
out to
saved
Manny.
us. I'm pointing to him in the back over there. So that's him. And he basically said, yeah, you can go back and live on Earth, but you have to do my evil bidding kind of thing, right? And he just kills people.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
So,
That sounds
yeah.
really cool.
This actually sounds
It's
awesome.
dark,
Jamie Foxx is almost like the perfect
Yeah.
candidate. I think Jamie Foxx is like some of the best range in
Yeah.
Hollywood. I mean, like Ray, Django,
Horrible bosses.
Horrible Bosses,
Electro.
Electro, yeah.
Electro, right?
He gave an electrifying.
Manny and I were talking about that the other day. Like, Jamie Foxx doing a comic book movie last time didn't go so well.
Didn't pan out so
That was
well.
not a very good
Yeah, but I feel like those weren't
interpretation.
in the
But
Yeah.
you
best
can't put it all on the
hands.
shoulders of Jamie Foxx. That movie had other problems.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another question for you guys. How do we feel about this small horror company? Well, not really small. I guess the production size, Blumhouse is small, but they're very big in the horror world. Are we how do we feel about them getting into the highly saturated superhero game?
If I can interject here,
Of
I think
course, please
that
do.
It's a very exciting prospect. I feel like Blumhouse has, like, we've talked about this many times, like they have a very unique production process, and they have like a really interesting way of doing things for like not a lot of money, and it's just like very creative ways of doing big things. And I think it'll be definitely different from probably a Marvel or a DC movie, but I'm interested to see something different in that genre.
Yeah.
And I think Blumhouse has like a lot of experience in horror and like psychological thrillers. I think that they could bring something really interesting to the table.
Cool.
Yeah,
Good point.
for them to enter the superhero genre, I think is going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool idea to have like the guy who basically knows the character better than anybody to be
for sure.
ahead of the project.
Such a good choice. Yeah.
Has this been in like development hell for like a while? Because I think I remember hearing rumors of.
It was announced, I think,
for a while.
at last year's Comic-Con or maybe 2 years ago that he was looking to direct, and I think Blumhouse is the perfect place for that because they can pay him very little, and then he can make up whatever money comes from the project on the back end, which is basically their deal and how they're able to afford people like Jamie Foxx.
It sounds like Blumhouse is a bit of like the was it Image Comics?
You know what? That's a really good point.
Movie world?
In a lot of ways, they are connected in that way.
Except they hold on to their IPs.
They hold on to their IPs. That's true. But they are willing to split the profits with the creators, and I think that's a really interesting and novel way of doing business in Hollywood these days, because that's not a deal that you hear of. Like we were talking about last week, I was listening to the podcast, and you're talking about the guy who wrote what's it called? Oh my gosh, how am I blanking on this name? Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
And the company being like, yeah, we made no money. It's like, well, for Blumhouse, you know exactly how much money the movie's making because you're taking a cut.
You have like you have some skin in the game.
You got some skin in the game.
Excellent.
Yep.
Very nice. Cool. So we'll move on to the next story. It's a pretty raunchy one. Well, the story itself, I guess, isn't raunchy, but the movie involved with it is. It's called The Happytime Murders. if you guys listening or watching haven't seen the trailer yet, highly suggest you do. I personally think it looks hilarious.
Parental guidance is required, though.
Parental guidance is required. R-rated Muppet movie. And I can see
it's not a Muppet movie.
Puppet. Sorry, Puppet. Yeah. If it was Muppet, then Sesame Street / Sesame Street would have more of a better case with their literal case. So this is the story. The Sesame Street creators unsuccessfully tried to sue this movie because they felt that it tarnished the reputation of Sesame Street. And there's a lot of layers to this. It's not just kind of out of the blue. It's not just, oh, it's a puppet movie, so people are going to think it's Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Let's see here. They sued STX Entertainment, and this was their statement, that it was an unlawful attempt to deceive and confuse the public into associating it with the most celebrated children's program in history.
They're calling their own show the most.
They're tooting their horn a little bit.
What does this have to do with Blue's Clues?
Arthur?
Yeah.
Come on.
But it does make sense because the people creating this movie is the Jim Henson Company.
And Brian Henson is directing it. His son.
Jim Henson's son is directing it. So the ties are obviously there for Sesame Street to be worried. And also they had the tagline of "No Sesame, All Street." So Sesame Street is literally in that tagline. Although it does say "No Sesame," so it's kind of like...
That's incredible. That's such a good tagline.
So, I mean, it's pretty interesting. They tried suing them, and then a judge in New York looked at the case and then said, this doesn't make sense, because Sesame Street claimed also that it was confusing the audience into thinking it was a Sesame Street movie.
The poster is literally them holding guns on the poster.
Never saw a Sesame Street poster like that. But anyways, the judge saw that, and he saw the case, and he was like, there's no evidence to support this, so he threw it out the window. So it's a fun little story. I just want to see what your guys' first impressions are, or opinions.
I can't remember if I said this on the show before, but I remember seeing the first concept art for this movie 5 years ago or something like that, and being so excited. And the concept art is this noir, the puppet, in this dark alley, and being really excited. And then I saw this trailer, and it kind of is not that. It's a bit more of a raunchy comedy, which is disappointing, but at the same time, the trailer made me laugh out loud a few times.
Oh, for sure. Same.
That's really funny.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say about this. As we were discussing before, I definitely can see the perspective of both parties in this instance, I think. Mm-hmm. I can see why Sesame Street would want to bank on it, because it seems like a good opportunity, to take these people down. But at the same time, they don't have a patent on using puppets as a means of comedy or as a means of education.
Exactly.
In this instance, I think it's safe to say that puppets have been used as a comedic tool for so long, and it's just I feel like it's such a stretch for them to be oh, all of these people who worked on Sesame Street are involved in this, and so it's Sesame Street. Because you said before, if you directed Spider-Man and then you were, working on another project and you said directed by the director of Spider-Man, that would be okay. It's just a way to.
The example I gave was a Serbian film 2.
There you go.
Then I could say,
what the punchline
that was
a Serbian film 2 directed by the director of Spider-Man. There's nothing wrong with saying that if it's true. You can't Marvel can't be hey, that's not. I don't like
exactly.
That being said, though, the tagline, no Sesame, all street or whatever, that's it's a bit, I wouldn't say that it's more satirical, you know what I mean? It's more they're kind of making fun of them.
For sure.
And all this to say that the movie looks really funny. I was watching it earlier and I was really laughing. Melissa McCarthy is such a force. She's
great.
She's
I
so
really
funny.
enjoy her.
I'm looking forward to this movie. It looks really funny.
It looks really funny. But at the same time, they are very Muppety puppets.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean?
For sure.
But that's not grounds for a lawsuit.
There was, I don't know, I didn't look into this, but I know that there was a movie that Peter Jackson made in the 90s. I think it was called Meet the Feebles. That was rated R and very much like this. And I don't know if they got there was a lawsuit against that. Maybe because it was a kind of culty B movie.
Yeah. Maybe they're just mad that the Jim Henson Company kind of betrayed them in doing this.
It's
or
Brian
something.
Henson, right?
Yeah.
But
whatever
he wants.
It's funny because STX Entertainment, I don't think they ever really took this potential lawsuit seriously, because they're kind of very jokey about it in response. They're oh, we're gonna let our lawyer Fred respond to this, and then Fred turned out to be a puppet.
My god!
They released
so
a
funny.
press statement. It was a picture of a puppet, and it was Fred Esquire, and he's explaining how we don't feel that this tarnishes the brand at all. We actually go to great lengths by trying to disassociate it with saying no sesame. So it's like I thought it was really funny. And then when the judge threw the case out, they had Fred come back and say like, "Oh, we love Sesame Street. We don't want anyone to get it twisted, but we're very pleased with this."
They could so milk this story for like
as they should.
I think I think like this. I'm glad that this movie is being made because it seems like such a risky movie. And like, I think more movies like this should be like original, you know, like kind of out there movies like this.
Is that the trailers? You see puppets' heads being blown off.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sexual jokes.
Very sexual jokes.
There's a very sexual
let's not
joke
get
at
too
the
into
end.
that,
I won't
'cause
get
it's a
too
bit
into
much
it,
for me.
but I will
You can
just
see
say
the trailer for yourself. Yeah.
the part when he finishes and then he's like, oh, I'm lightheaded. I was dying when he said I was lightheaded. That was super funny.
Amazing.
But again, don't let us tell you to see it. Watch the trailer, judge for yourself. It might be a little too raunchy for some of you.
I don't think anybody has to see the trailer because you just told them what
Yeah.
happens
Blushing
in the
right
trailer.
now. My goodness.
And blushing.
Hey, what does he finish doing? Building a house? Building a closet? You don't know.
But he's
You
lightheaded
don't
is
know.
all we know.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
My parents watch this show.
So do mine.
Sorry, parents.
Parents
Sorry.
watching.
Yeah, we'll
Keep
change
watching.
the speed a little bit for you parents out there watching, and anyone who maybe doesn't want to hear any more about these puppets. So we're going to talk about Star Wars. A Solo a Star Wars story came out last weekend. And I think we talked about it on the show last week, and we were talking about how, it's probably going to make its money, blah, 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 blah. Apparently it didn't do super well. It kind of bombed, actually, didn't it, Justin? Shockingly bombed. So it also opened on Memorial Day weekend in the States, which is huge. That's so many days for the audience to go and see it. They were estimating $150 million that weekend domestically, but they only pulled in 101.
That's insane.
Yeah.
For a Star Wars movie?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In itself,
Nuts.
it's like they're pretty decent numbers. They're good numbers. But
Well,
for
any
a
other
movie
movie
that cost
it'd be-
as much as it did.
Yeah.
For a Star Wars movie.
exactly.
I have a
Not
theory
good.
about this. I think if they had released this in December, like every other Star Wars movie, this would have probably done way better.
You think it's too soon? Like,
I think one, it's way too soon. Two, they would have had more time for reshoots and people would have had more faith in it, I think. Like now it's like what, this came out in May and their next Star Wars movie is next December.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think
Big gap.
it would have given that year break where people would have like had that time to breathe, especially with Deadpool 2 and
Avengers.
Like
Yeah.
people were just like so exhausted from all these like big blockbusters, I think.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know why they chose to release it in May.
Those are good points, which leads me to these two questions I want to ask you guys. Liam, you kind of answered the first part, but for you guys, feel free to chime in. Why do you think it bombed? And do you think it's because of Star Wars fatigue? You mentioned that they just keep
I also think
releasing them. So
December is such a Star Warsy time for me. Like the past
Christmas,
3
yeah.
years, it's like been part of that tradition of like going
Same.
to see it
For sure.
like around December and like.
I usually go like on
I think that's
Christmas
part of
Day
it, too.
or like a few days after. Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
I just-
any of you guys want to perhaps answer those questions?
I mean, it's so tough to say. Like, fatigue, I think, is maybe a bit harsh. I think people are still in on Star Wars. But I do agree that, Last Jedi was in December. It's been just a few months since then. And already we have another Star Wars movie. Granted, it's like a disconnected story from the one that we're watching. I also think that part of it is just, like, as much as people thought, a Han Solo movie will do well, I don't think that many people cared to see that story opened up in the way that they chose to do it. Like, it really does feel like the movie is just a greatest hits of all the things that Han Solo like mentioned in the original trilogy. And I don't know if we needed that. Like, the cool thing about Rogue One, and the reason people will continue to compare this movie to Rogue One, that movie made $1 billion. That movie was the first of its kind. Granted, there was the Christmas specials and all that stuff, but it was the first like.
Do not talk about the Christmas
It was
specials.
the first big like
Not
Star
here.
Wars spin-off, and it was like completely new. There was no characters that we could connect to like from past movies. There was no expectation of, can this guy live up to the role of X person or Y person?
sure.
It was
Yeah.
new characters. I think they, and they're gonna continue to make these prequel movies, but I think they chose wrong by doing it Han Solo first.
It seems like it's like, I don't know, with the prospect of like Disney buying Star Wars and them being like, oh, the possibilities are endless. Like, what movies can they make? Han Solo felt just like the most obvious one, and I think they jumped the gun a bit on like being like, oh, we're making a Han Solo movie, you know? Because like I don't think they really took the time to think about like what that meant. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's also like if kids were like sitting around a campfire and like pitching a Han Solo movie, they would have like come up with the same idea.
Yeah.
What if he does the Kessel
so
Run?
obvious.
What if he meets Chewbacca? What if he like gets the Millennium Falcon? That's all the stuff that he talks about. What if we got to see it? And it's like someone overheard and it's just like,
it's better left in the dark. It's better left in the dark, right?
Well, it's not even in the dark. We've heard the story. Like,
but that's what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
you like. Because like, what is the like? You know what I mean?
It's better left in the dimly lit room. We didn't need the lights all the way on to be like, and that's exactly how he met this guy. And I don't know. To me, it was just unnecessary.
It's like equivalent to that guy that just tells you stories about like everything in their life, and it's like, oh yeah, that's probably like was like a really great moment in their life, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Phoebe, you as you're a casual Star Wars fan.
Casual, yeah.
Yeah.
Still a Star Wars fan, just casual, yeah.
Exactly. So when you knew that Star Wars a Star Wars story was going to be made, were you excited at all, or do you kind of agree
I'll
with
be honest
Liam's
with you,
point?
there was no part of me that was excited about this movie. I think like hearing all of the behind the scenes drama and everything sort of made me like, you know, like we had talked about how it was going to be like fragmented because of like the switch in directors and there was so much drama and all this, and like that for me, you know, like hearing about that, I think maybe because I care a little bit more, it sort of ruins the experience for me. And also, it's funny that you mentioned Rogue One, because I was trying to think, like, why is this movie not doing well? And I think, like, maybe it's too far removed from, like, the original trilogy. But then I thought, but there was Rogue One, you know, like, and it was all new characters. I feel like even though it was, like, Han Solo and Chewie and all of these characters that we know and love, it still felt too far removed. It felt like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel connected. And, like, I definitely don't think it's Star Wars fatigue. I don't think that will ever set in, because there's always, like, new and interesting stories to tell. I just think that this was, like, a really bad choice of story, because it's, like, as much as people love Han Solo, I think that they love Han Solo played by Harrison Ford in the original trilogy, and that's the person that they love, and they don't need... You know, we don't need a backstory to every single character. You know, that's just how I feel about it.
Especially when that character's backstory is like pretty well established.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it would be cool to go into someone else's backstory. Like, we'll talk about it a bit later, but like Boba Fett, who is this very captivating character. People have seen him. We don't know much about him other than like in the prequels, they're like, he's a clone baby.
Yeah.
Okay. But what happened in between?
Baby.
So like that's an interesting backstory to go into, because there's so many unanswered questions, right? But I just feel like they were just like, hey, I wonder how this happened. It's like, well, we know.
I think that they were like banking on the fact that like Harrison Ford's version of that character was like so popular and so iconic, and they were like, we can like make some real money off of this guy. And then they got, I know that you're gonna argue with me, this guy.
Boy, say it.
Love it.
2 words, wet napkin, to play Han Solo, and I don't know. It's just not the same. It's not the same character. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead, disagree with me. That's
no. I was gonna say something completely different. That's fine. I don't really have to argue with.
It's almost maybe they're like.
So you agree that he's a wet napkin?
I don't agree with the fact that he's a wet napkin.
I
think he's getting unfair backlash.
Well, people have been pretty positive.
I think I really hope this doesn't ruin his career, because I think that guy's got so much potential.
I don't think
people have
it
been
will.
walking away with like positive things to say about him. That was actually the surprising thing for me, is I thought people would be like, oh, he's not great, but the movie is like pretty decent. But it was actually the opposite. People were like, despite the fact that he gives in
it took me some time to get into it. Yeah,
pretty good performance. A lot of people are just like, this movie's a non-starter. Nothing happens.
It's interesting too, because when the first trailers came out, everyone was like, he's nothing like Han Solo. This is ridiculous. He doesn't sound like him. He doesn't act like him. This. And then a lot of the reviews I'm seeing are saying like, he actually does a really good job, and he makes a character his own, which is really refreshing.
But
is
it the same thing?
It's like a 180 from what a lot of people were saying before.
But it's the same thing as saying like, oh, Daniel Craig is nothing like Sean Connery as James Bond. Like, is that the same thing? I don't know if that's like a question I want to raise to you guys.
It's not the same.
It is the same character.
No, it's not.
It's not, because all those Bonds have always done like their own.
Yeah,
thing.
but how do you know that that's not what Disney's trying to do right now?
You're saying that Han Solo is going to be like James?
It could.
You're caught. Your face was
who knows?
No.
Liam
Wasn't he caught? He was cast for like 3 movies.
No.
Could they not?
I think they could.
If it had gotten really if it had gotten really popular, then maybe they would have done that.
They could, but I'm not saying. Are you saying?
Don't act like I'm crazy for saying that. It's a valid theory.
Let's.
No.
All right.
Are we gonna end it there? Do we?
No. I got one more. I got one more
thing.
thing to say.
Oh, he's gonna try and.
No. This is something completely different.
Come back
Since
from
day
this.
one. I've said that Phil Lord and Chris Miller, if they had made this movie from scratch and gotten to finish it, I think this would have been a way more exciting movie. I don't think they would have cared about all that stuff, like those notes that they would have had to hit, because like I think they were making a movie that was based on like improv and like it was going to be comedic and it would have had a probably style to it, and I don't know. I would have loved to see what they had to do. And then Ron Howard, who I think is pretty boring.
I want to talk about wet napkins.
Yeah,
there you go.
Ron Howard as a
Fair
filmmaker
enough,
is kind of a
Happy Days. Though.
As the final note on this, I just want to mention I read an interview with why am I blanking on her name? One of the biggest actresses right now who played Kira. Game of Thrones lady. Why am I Emilia Clarke? Yeah, she was doing an interview, and she kind of like low key took a shot at those two directors.
Oh shit! What did she say?
Because she was like, "Oh, you know, I was so happy when Ron Howard came on because you know I had like more greater direction, and previously it was just like all the notes I was getting were just, oh, Kira, she's film noir, and she's like, okay, that's cool, but that's not like a direction. Like I need more guidance than that." And I was like, oh,
no Tino shade. Damn.
She didn't ever say the names, but I mean, who else are you talking about? Yeah.
Where are my dragons?
Where are my dragons? Cool. So those were the three biggest stories of the week. But as usual, there are stories that don't make the top 3 cut. So we're gonna hit up the cutting room floor in a bit. Welcome back to the CineFiles Extended Cut. If you want to check the show out as an audio podcast, you can definitely do that on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. So now it's time for the cutting room floor. And we're going to stay on the Star Wars train just for a little bit longer because Boba Fett is going to get a movie. Yep. You had talked about Boba Fett earlier.
Did you predict this?
Bobby Fett, my boy.
Bobby, you're getting one, buddy.
James Mangold,
Robert Fett.
directing.
Yes, of Logan fame.
And the Wolverine.
Ooh,
let's
Logan
not forget
fame.
he directed that one too.
And
but let's
X-Men
prefer...
Origins.
No, not that one.
He did make that, didn't he?
Did he? No,
I think he made all 3 of them.
Oh, really? Okay, I know he did the Wolverine.
Maybe? Don't quote me on that. I don't know.
Maybe?
Logan is good.
Logan is very good.
Logan's
Very
great.
good.
That seems like the one where they actually let him do what he wanted to do.
Yeah. I love that it was a Western.
But
Do you think Boba Fett will be as good?
Well, I was gonna say,
Will it be a Western?
when it comes to studios letting people do what they want to do, Lucasfilm's track record right now is not great.
This is very true.
So that being said, I would love to see the guy who did Logan do a Boba Fett movie in the same vein, a dark, gritty, R-rated Boba Fett movie.
You think it's just gonna be called Boba?
Oh my God, Boba Fett.
What's better, Boba or
Robert
Fett? It's
Just
probably
call
Boba.
Robert Fett, a Star
No,
Wars.
not even Fett, just Robert, like Logan.
Oh my God, that's so true. Just Robert.
Oh, Robert Fett.
But do we
No,
think
not
that
Fett,
maybe
just Robert.
because he did so well on Logan that maybe Lucasfilm might budge a little bit?
Don't you think the Lord and Miller did such a good job on 22 and 21 Jump Street and Lego Movie and all of their successes? Didn't help them.
Nope.
This to me is like the exact same thing I was saying with Solo. Solo, where it just seems like so obvious. Like it just seems like the obvious character that they want.
Two people
Liam
like
just
you and
want
I.
backstory for
all the Star Wars stories are obvious.
Well, no, because I remember
Solo,
when Disney
Boba.
announced that they were buying Lucasfilm, everyone was like the possibilities, and then Boba Fett was the first one to come out. Boba, sorry. I'm thinking of Robert.
Phoebe's being really immature, so that's why I'm laughing. She's making silly word associations.
What do you think?
It's hard not to with a name like Boba Fett. I think that, you know how a lot of people were saying who asked for this movie when Solo was coming out?
I think people are going to say that.
No, I think a lot of people asked for this one. People want to see Boba Fett,
But I think at the beginning, a lot of people were asking for a Han Solo movie, and then it came out, and they're like, no, we don't want this.
I don't
This
know.
is not what we asked for.
Take it back. Take it back. I think that this could actually be really cool if they let James Mangold do what he does best.
Not going to happen.
Which is not going to happen. I hope he keeps his job, though. People have had a hard time doing that at Lucasfilms when they come with their own vision. They're like, get out. We don't want you. Get out. So, yeah, I think that a James Mangold... this is my take. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to present it with a nice bow around it.
Go.
Nice.
I think a James Mangold Boba Fett movie would be awesome. I hope he gets to make it.
Nice.
Yep.
Do we think he's going to be pansexual?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, moving on. Moving on.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, so the next one. From one beloved director to the next, Zack Snyder.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
So Zack Snyder. No, because we were talking. Yeah, I'm joshing.
I feel
I'm
goofed
joshing.
right now.
Well, I mean, a lot of people like
Mangold.
Zack Snyder, so
Not us.
I'm sure they exist.
So this is the news. Zack Snyder, his next movie is not a Batman or a DC or a superhero. Will it be CGI? Who knows? Probably. But it's going to be based on
would
the
put
book.
money on the fact that it would be.
It'd be weird, though, if it was on the book, The Fountainhead, and it had ton of CGI.
How are they going to make the Fountainhead without CGI? It's like a
Yeah.
whole head of a fountain. I'm kidding.
So what do we think of this project? I'm not very familiar with the book, but I asked friend / coworker Jem. Shout outs to
Hey,
Jem.
Ex-panelist.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
asked. He's a big fan. Phoebe always gets triggered when you bring Jem up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But so I asked him about the Fountainhead because apparently he's a big fan. And the Fountainhead for Dummies explanation he gave me was he's an artist and he loves doing these crazy modern art pieces, but all the other artists and population are like, oh, this is too out there. This is too crazy. You need to do traditional art. And he's like, no, man, I'm going to do me and I'm going to do the art I want to do. And then I just thought, oh, man. Zack Snyder is making a movie about himself. Or it's like, yo, Zack, stop using CGI, man.
Except it's not modern art.
It's blown out of proportion. No, I'm gonna do it.
It sounds like Banksy.
I sound like Banksy?
No. The character you're describing sounds like Banksy.
Yeah, except not as cool.
For those who play video games, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged are two Ayn Rand books that heavily influenced BioShock, which I like a lot. Big BioShock fan myself. But
Same.
But that being said, I'm not looking forward to this whatsoever. I think Ayn Rand's politics are well noted as being like kind of harsh and kind of conservative and libertarian in a lot of ways. Which if that's your mojo, then go for it.
That's your mojo.
If that's your mojo.
Nice.
But I don't know. For me, like Zack Snyder is all about these like big cinematic, epic stories.
Like
and this feels
also like out of this world.
Yeah,
kind of
out of this
thing,
world.
too.
I don't know how many slow motion fight scenes you can fit into the Fountainhead. Though I don't know the source material very well. I could be wrong. But
I'm like picturing the visuals of this movie, and I'm already out. Like I'm already just like I don't want this.
Yeah.
Does he normally write his own stuff?
No. He's worked with David Goyer quite a bit. He works with a lot of screenwriters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
DC
I
scribe.
was gonna say if he's writing this, I feel like he's more of a visual guy than he is. And if he's writing a heavily political.
I don't know if the story is political. To be fair, I just know that the writer has infused a lot of her own political beliefs into her stories, and she's well known for that.
Well, Atlas Shrugged is like
Atlas Shrugged
a
is
Bible for many people.
That's right.
And also, Zack Snyder, like his fan base is clearly based in the superhero DC kind of universe.
Yeah,
I guess. Are they gonna care about a movie like this? Like, is Zack Snyder's name enough to get those people to see this movie?
I don't know.
You know,
Why
it's
not?
funny. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, "Oh, is this like DC's Guardians of the Galaxy?" Like joking, like, "Oh, it must be a
Classic.
No, it was like joking, like, "Oh, this must be a DC character no one knows. Oh, who is this Fountainhead?"
And the man with a
Fountainhead
man.
But yeah, I don't know. I think he made the right call, kind of stepping away from the DC stuff for a little bit.
Yeah,
Considering
definitely had to do
negative,
that.
I feel like they may have not given
Wanted
him his
it,
job
yeah.
back.
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair. Considering how, I wanted to say considering how these films have fared in the past, but like it's not a surprise to anyone at this point, right? Like he came out with Superman, Man of Steel, people didn't like it. Batman v Superman came out, people didn't like it. Then Justice League came out, people didn't like it. It's like, okay,
His vision wasn't intact.
oh right, release the Snyder
Yeah.
cut, people.
Yeah. I'll shout out to another coworker / friend, Manny, our director over there. I'm going to point him out.
Manny.
He said that he's not sure about this. He thinks that Zack should probably just maybe step back from directing for a bit and just focus on DP work because he's such a visual artist.
Interesting.
Makes sense. So maybe, Zack, if you're listening, homie,
Take our advice.
take that into consideration. We're not saying you have to, but it might be an option. So let's jump into the new releases. We'll talk about those a little quickly. So Adrift is coming out this weekend. That's a movie where a couple goes out to sea on this little boat, and they get caught in hurricane storms.
Bad idea.
And it stars
Shailene
Woodley of many movie fame.
and that guy from
And
The
Big
Hunger
Little
Games.
Lies.
Yeah. She was great in Big Little Lies. It seems, I mean, it's not at the top of my watch list, but it seems pretty, like, it seems like a tense watch.
I like those kinds of movies, like that like Trapped in the Sea movie.
Like Perfect Storm. That was, I remember seeing that.
That's a good movie. I like that movie.
In theaters as a kid. That was good.
Yeah. I'm actually excited for this movie. Like,
yeah.
That's a movie that I would go and see, not because I think that it would be like a good story or anything. It's just like I like that sort of feeling that those movies give you. Like when I went to go see The Shallows,
crying feeling?
I definitely didn't think that it was like a good.
Is this a sad movie? Is it sad?
No.
I don't want to spoil it, but
This movie?
Yeah, Adrift.
Not really.
It's true story, based on a true story.
Well,
It'll be
you interrupted Phoebe.
Sorry. Keep going.
You really derailed me there. When I went to go see The Shallows, which I don't think by any means is like a great movie, it's just like one of those like movies that you go see if you want to, like, for someone who's like not a horror fan but likes to feel like, ooh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
You know,
is that shark gonna get her?
Yeah,
what's gonna happen?
I like sharks.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not sure there are any sharks in Adrift, but
there's got to be some sharks in there.
In the water.
In the water,
it's like Jaws. You don't see it, but you know it's there. For the whole movie, you don't see it, but you know it's there.
And the other movie coming out, man, Johnny Knoxville's back at it. He's doing Action Point. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I am very excited for this.
Wow.
But you're a huge Johnny Knoxville fan.
I'm not a huge Johnny Knoxville fan, but
You're giant.
I've seen all the Jackass movies.
Yeah.
I've seen Bad Grandpa. Is that Bad Grandpa?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or Dirty Grandpa? Yeah, Bad Grandpa's a good one.
Dirty Grandpa's a different film.
And the source material for like the story of this park, have you guys know it?
Yeah.
That like park from New Jersey that was like super dangerous and it ran for like a year or two or something like that.
Like
There
an
was,
amusement
some
park?
deaths and, like,
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
damn.
crazy. Yeah.
I heard that Johnny Knoxville got like a lot of concussions.
Yeah.
filming. He got like 3 concussions while filming this.
And
this
apparently
movie.
his eyeball pops out like
No.
every time he sneezes. It's crazy. Yeah.
Like in the movie or in real life?
No, in real life.
That's the worst thing I've
Like
ever heard.
like one of his injuries, like now when he sneezes,
my
his
God.
eyeball pops out. And
Not
he's
all
like,
the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure just like
no,
I
just like a little
can't.
bit, and he's like,
The way you made it sound, I was like, whoa.
no,
like
the mask.
Looney Tunes.
Let me just. Yeah.
He's doing
In
a
the middle of
scene
a
as
conversation.
I like him
Johnny,
and-
your eyes hanging out.
I like him and I respect his thing.
I don't know if I respect
I think he's
it.
I do
He's
for sure.
fine,
Why is
but-
He's
he
got
still
such a
doing
love
this?
for his like craft. Like he's really inspired by like
This
the
is
Evil
true.
Knievel's
where he's like
Yeah.
he loves like stunt work and I mean.
But it's
just like
also
he's
Evil
physical
Knievel.
comedy.
He's on a
like-
motorcycle jumping over cars and buses, and then Johnny Knoxville's
took-
beating his face
He
with a
took
baseball
what he
bat.
loved. He took what he loved doing with his friends, like just dumb stuff,
Yeah.
like doing crazy stuff, like stunt work, and he made a career out of it. And I think I really applaud that for like. I mean, obviously, physically, his physical health is not up
Yeah.
to where it should be, but
I like
mean,
Jackass.
which makes sense.
They're exciting to watch. They're always really entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah, you like
Jackass?
Jackass,
I liked
Phoebe.
it.
Yeah.
Jackass
funny.
did
It
so
is.
much cultural harm. I found like how many
for sure.
How many kids do you know that were just like, all right, this
Oh
is
my
me
God.
doing my.
I never did any of that stuff though. Like I
did.
love this.
Oh, I only did like the really soft stuff. Like it's just like this is my Jackass, and it's like I jump over a fence or something. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
guys, that was my.
I am Justin. Welcome to Jackass.
Yeah.
This is me
Run
falling
over
over a
Fall
fence.
over.
Many people have hurt themselves trying to do this.
Yep.
Those things, anyways. Do we think it? I mean, Bad Grandpa. No, yeah, Bad
Bad
Grandpa. I was gonna say Dirty Grandpa.
Nasty
Bad Grandpa
Grandpa.
got pretty good reviews too when it came out. So
Yeah. I
it
nominated
seems-
for an Oscar.
yeah, makeup.
Yep.
Yeah. yeah.
What?
Yep.
Are you joking?
not
But
a
it was
joke.
really good.
I don't
makeup.
believe you.
Yeah,
Well
well
deserved.
deserved.
I don't.
So,
I
I
don't
mean,
believe it.
It's one of those movies where I think it's like, you know, what you see is what you get. You know
I don't
what
think
to
I'll see it in
expect.
theaters, but like,
Yeah.
I think it'll be an entertaining watch.
Yeah. So if you guys, I was gonna say mindless, and I guess I won't say mindless, but if you want some silly slapstick kind
comedy.
of
Yeah.
entertainment, definitely check that out. So those are the new releases, and that basically wraps up our show, guys. So thank you so much for checking out the CineFiles Extended Cut, and be sure to subscribe to MojoTalks for more of this and other great content. You can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher for the audio podcast version. So that wraps things up, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye,
Cheers.
Derek.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to our MojoTalks YouTube channel for the video version of the CineFiles Extended Cut.